Because what's in this package, get this car back on the road as soon as possible, and not before time, I can tell you. Hi folks, I've got a funny one going on with the Audi here. Just when I get that close to putting it on the road, something else crops up and I can't get it running, can't get it on the road. So what it is this time, after spending a fortune getting the Bosch K-Jetronic running properly, and it was running really well, a couple of weeks back I was putting the car in the garage and it just conked out totally and there was no spark at the spark plugs. So I've done all the usual things that I've done over the years, and I replaced the distributor cap, the rotor arm, I got a new coil for it, it's got new plug leads on it anyway and new spark plugs, but still it wouldn't start. It just was not getting a spark to the spark plugs, but the spark was going up the main lead to the distributor cap, but it would go through the distributor cap to the brush, but it wouldn't go from the brush to any of the plugs down the plug leads. So I put a call out on the Audi 80 and 90 Facebook page, and the general consensus of opinion was that it was a hall sensor. After I fitted the new hall sensor, there was still no spark at the spark plugs, so I decided to take the distributor out, earth it direct to the battery so that I can spin it by hand, and by doing it that way I don't need to crank the engine over and I can see exactly when it's sparking and when it's not. Well, it's not the hall sensor anyway, because the main lead was flashing on the test light, and then when I put the spark plug on and also the test light on, it's not actually cylinder 1, it's cylinder 2, but it doesn't really matter which cylinder it is, the plug isn't firing, and also the test light is not flashing either. So it more than looks like it's going to be a distributor after all that. But first I'm going to do my little trick with shorting out just to see if there's power coming through the main lead through the distributor brush. Then I'm going to short it out on number 1 plug lead and see if this lights up the tester. Right, that shows that there is spark coming from the distributor. There's a signal coming from the distributor to the coil, and the spark's coming through the main lead, and by me bridging the main lead through the carbon brush to number 1 lead, and the spark plug is sparking, but it doesn't spark when I turn the distributor without that bridging bit of metal in. So I think what's happening is, as the rotor arm's going round, it's actually sparking in the middle. That's what I think is happening. I could be completely wrong. So the hall sensor's good, but the distributor for some reason is sending a spark when it's between, let's say for example, numbers 1 cylinder and 2 cylinders, and it's not sending a spark there, it's sending a spark there and not there, but there and not there. That's the only thing I can think of. So I'm a wee bit stumped as to what it can be. Whether it would be the distributor itself, I'm not sure. So hopefully somebody out there might know, what my problem is. And if you do, well, anybody just leave any comments in the comment section below, and hopefully I'll get this thing sorted and running and on the road as soon as possible. Well, that's interesting. I took everything off again and reset the whole of the timing with a distributor, which apparently seemed to be sort of quite a few degrees out. But I put it all back together where it should be, started it up, and it sounds really rough. And to me, it sounds as though it's possibly jumped a tooth or two on the cam belt, because it can't sound like that when it's really cold, but not as bad as that. There's usually only maybe one hydraulic lifter that rattles when it's cold, if it's been sitting for 2 or 3 weeks. But that seemed like the whole lot. It doesn't normally sound as rough as that. So I'm going to take the whole front end off again and check all the timing marks, and check and put the distributor where it should be, at top dead centre. Right, I've got the whole front end stripped down here, and you can see on the pulley here there's a timing mark, and there's a corresponding dot on the cam cover, and they're lining up. And if you look in here, I don't know if you can see it, there's a timing mark on the camshaft pulley, and it should line up with the top of the cylinder head, which it does, so that is okay. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to take the distributor out and have a physical look inside it. And I showed part of this video to Rob at Nantsport, and he said that I replaced the actual hall sender and not the hall sensor, which is what this part is. So I had a look online, and you can actually buy this part, and it comes from Lithuania, so hopefully it should be here within 2 or 3 days. And you've got to just love eBay. I got this from Lithuania, and it only took 3 days to get here, and I couldn't source this in UK at all, so I had no choice but to get it from Lithuania. But there seems to be a good market out there for Audi bits and pieces. So there we have it, my new hall sensor. So here's the hall sensor, and that's the vacuum advance on the back of the hall sensor. And these are just some new screws. And it just basically slides on, and it's held on by a circlip. But it's held in position with a small, I think they're called cotter pins. But before I put that in, I'm just making sure that I can loop the vacuum onto the hall sensor and just secure that in place before I put the circlip in. And once that's in place, then I can put the plastic, tap down the plastic into the body of the distributor. Now this piece over here is held in with a cotter pin, and I can't remember when I took it off. This may have actually been what was wrong with it, because I can't remember a cotter pin coming out when I dismantled it, and I didn't take note of the positioning of this part. And there are 5 gaps in it for each cylinder, so possibly this part here had slipped round somewhat in the distributor. But that's it in its correct position now. And then there's a circlip goes on top of that. Now we'll put the distributor cap clips on, and they just screw direct onto the side of the body, but you've got to get them in the right position first, which is quite tricky. Then finally the cap and the rotor arm goes on top of that. Now, number 1 plug lead, and I've just put a line on the side of the distributor to show where I should set up the rotor arm. And the rotor arm's lined in with the number 1 cylinder, and then I fix it in place. Get the cap back on. And then finally the electrical lead. And I'm just double checking everything here, double checking the timing marks, and just go over absolutely everything and make sure it's all ready to go. And then finally connect the battery up. That's the distributor back on. It's lined up in number 1 cylinder, so that's all lined up. It's actually on number 1 cylinder. The timing marks are correct on the cam belt. I've tightened the steering pump up so the distributor can't move either. So battery's connected, so all I have to do now is just try and start it. I'll go to the foot of our stairs. That's it running. At last, it's only taken me about 6 years. So, that's such a relief to get that going. And it was the hall sensor, this little unit. In olden days it would be points, but this is the electronic ignition. And that's what was at fault. And it wasn't giving the spark out at the correct time. And when I turned the distributor around, it would fire, but it wouldn't run very well. So by a process of elimination, you know, I replaced everything else. This was the last thing, and the only place I could get it was Lithuania, and thank God for eBay. So as I said, that's a great relief. A big thumbs up. Please keep watching, keep subscribing, and you'll see me soon driving this to the show on the 2nd of June.